The galaxy learned to fear humanity not from their warriors, their weapons, or their wars. They learned to fear a 13-year-old girl who built her first quantum processor from spare parts in her bedroom. While alien civilizations spent centuries perfecting technology, she rewrote the laws of physics before her 14th birthday. They called her too young, too naive, too human. But, when the screens across 100 worlds lit up with her final transmission, the universe understood that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their violence or their courage. It was their refusal to accept the impossible, especially when spoken by a child who had already made it possible. Maya Chen stared at the rejection letter floating in her neural interface display. The Galactic Science Council's official seal pulsed red with authority. Each word felt like a slap across her 13-year-old face. Application denied. Candidate lacks requisite experience and emotional maturity for interstellar research programs. Her fingers trembled as she dismissed the hologram. Around her, the makeshift laboratory hummed with equipment that shouldn't exist. Quantum processors she'd built from salvaged ship parts. Energy converters that made Zephyrian technology look primitive. Neural pathway mappers that could decode alien thought patterns in real time. All of it created by someone the galaxy considered a child. Maya pushed back from her workstation and walked to the viewport of their family's transport vessel. Outside, stars wheeled past in their eternal dance. Each point of light represented worlds where beings supposedly wiser than her made decisions that shaped reality for billions. Too young, she whispered to the darkness. Her reflection stared back. Short black hair that stuck up at odd angles from ours hunched over circuit boards. Dark eyes that had seen more quantum mathematics than most beings learned in lifetimes. Skinny arms that could wire a hyperdrive but couldn't reach the top shelf in the galley. Behind her, footsteps approached. She didn't need to turn around to know it was her mother. Another rejection? Dr. Sarah Chen's voice carried the weight of someone who'd fought similar battles. The 15th this month. Maya's breath fogged the viewport. They won't even look at my research. The moment they see my age, it's over. Show me what you're working on now. Maya led her mother to the central workbench. 3 monitors displayed cascading data streams that would give most scientists headaches. Quantum equations flowed like poetry across holographic displays. At the center sat a device no larger than Maya's fist, humming with contained energy. I call it a reality anchor, Maya explained, her voice gaining strength. It can stabilize quantum fluctuations across dimensional barriers. With proper calibration, we could open permanent gateways between galactic sectors. Travel that takes months could happen instantly. Sarah's eyes widened. She'd earned 3 doctorate degrees from Earth's finest universities, but her daughter's work left her feeling like a child staring at magic. Maya, this is revolutionary. This could change everything. Could, but won't. Maya's shoulders sagged. No one will fund research from someone who hasn't even finished primary education. The Zephyrians laughed at my application. Literally. They sent me a recording of their science minister explaining how juvenile humans lack the neural development for advanced theoretical work. And the Crystalline Confederacy? Worse. They suggested I focus on age-appropriate activities like mathematics and basic chemistry. Maya's hands clenched into fists. I solved their 3-century-old dimensional mechanics problem in my spare time last Tuesday. Sarah placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. You know what your grandmother used to say about being underestimated? That it's the most dangerous weapon someone can give you? Exactly. Sarah smiled. Maybe it's time we stopped asking permission. Maya looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. What do you mean? I mean we build it. All of it. Everything you've designed, everything you've dreamed. We prove them wrong not with words, but with results they can't ignore. Over the following weeks, their transport ship transformed into something between a laboratory and a factory. Maya worked 18-hour days, fueled by determination and her mother's endless supply of caffeine patches. The reality anchor evolved from prototype to working model. The first test sent a probe to the Kepler station, 47 light-years away. Instantaneous transmission. Zero energy decay. Perfect molecular integrity. The second test transported Maya's pet lab mouse to her grandmother's apartment on Mars. The mouse arrived unharmed, slightly confused, and carrying a note Maya had attached. "Hi Grandma. Physics is weird. Love, Maya." By the third test, they were ready for something bigger. Maya had identified a perfect target, the annual Galactic Science Exposition on Proxima Centauri. Thousands of the galaxy's brightest minds gathered to present breakthrough research. The event was exclusive, invitation only, and absolutely impossible for a 13-year-old human to attend. Unless she didn't ask permission. You want to teleport yourself 40 light-years to crash a science conference? Sarah tried to keep the panic from her voice. Not crash. Make an entrance. Maya's grin was pure mischief. I've been monitoring their security protocols. The reality anchor can deposit me directly in the main auditorium during Dr. Xylex's keynote presentation on dimensional barriers. The same Dr. Xilex who called your work scientifically impossible? The very same. Sarah stared at the swirling energy patterns of the reality anchor. Mathematics beyond her understanding controlled forces that could either revolutionize travel or disintegrate her daughter across spacetime. Maya, if something goes wrong, Mom. Maya's voice carried surprising maturity. I've run the calculations 8,000 times. I've tested every component until I could build them with my eyes closed. This isn't reckless. This is inevitable. That night, as their ship drifted through the void between solar systems, Maya made final preparations. She programmed the reality anchor for a two-way journey. Uploaded her research data to quantum-encrypted servers across human space. Recorded a message for her grandmother in case things went wrong. She didn't record one for her mother. Some conversations were too important for holograms. Promise me something, Sarah said as Maya calibrated the final settings. Anything. When you change the galaxy, remember you're still my little girl. Maya hugged her mother tight. I promise. At precisely 14:32 Galactic Standard Time, Dr. Xilex was explaining to the assembled scientists why instantaneous quantum transportation remained impossible when reality hiccuped. A column of shimmering light materialized in the center of the auditorium. Energy patterns that shouldn't exist painted impossible colors across the walls. The air hummed with mathematics made manifest. When the light faded, Maya Chen stood there. 13 years old. 4.5 feet tall. Wearing a hand-sewn lab coat covered in equations she'd embroidered herself. In her hands, she held the future. The auditorium fell silent. 3,000 of the galaxy's most brilliant minds stared at a human child who had just done the impossible. Dr. Xylex's mouth hung open, words dying in his throat. Maya smiled, looked directly into the recording devices broadcasting live across the galaxy, and spoke words that would echo through history. Hi everyone. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare. But I think I solved that problem. She held up the reality anchor. My name is Maya Chen. I'm 13 years old. And I'm here to show you how wrong you've been about everything. The transformation wasn't immediate. It never is when paradigms shift. But, in that moment, watching a child casually demonstrate technology that shattered their understanding of physics, the galaxy's scientific community felt something they'd forgotten existed. Wonder. And, just beneath it, the first stirrings of a fear they didn't yet understand. Because if a 13-year-old human could rewrite the laws of quantum mechanics in her bedroom, what else might humanity accomplish when they stopped asking permission? Maya activated her personal communicator, broadcasting on frequencies only humans monitored. Mom, I'm in. Beginning Phase 2. Across the auditorium, alien scientists reached for their recording devices. By the end of the day, every major news network in the galaxy would be showing footage of the impossible child and her impossible machine. By the end of the week, everything would change. The galaxy's reaction came in waves. First, disbelief. Experts across 100 worlds analyzed the footage frame by frame, searching for evidence of fakery. They found none. The quantum signatures were genuine. The dimensional mathematics checked out. The impossible had happened, performed by someone who shouldn't have been able to spell quantum mechanics according to their developmental models. Then came the questions. How had a human child bypassed security systems designed by the Confederacy's best engineers? Where had she acquired technology that surpassed their most advanced research? Why had no one in the scientific establishment heard of her work? Finally, inevitably, came the fear. Maya stood before the assembled scientists, her reality anchor humming softly in her hands. The device looked deceptively simple, a crystalline core surrounded by neural pathway interfaces, the whole thing no larger than a dinner plate. But its implications rippled through every conversation happening in the auditorium. Dr. Xilex, his blue-scaled face flushed with embarrassment and something approaching rage, was the first to break the stunned silence. "This is preposterous," he declared, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being the smartest being in any room. "Even if we accept that this display isn't some elaborate hoax, the notion that a juvenile human has independently developed technology beyond our collective understanding is scientifically absurd." Maya tilted her head, studying him with the same expression she might use to examine an interesting bug. "Dr. Xilex, right? You published that paper on dimensional barriers last year. The one with the mathematical error in equation 47? The auditorium's murmur died completely. "There is no error in my work," Xilex replied coldly. "Sure there is." Maya's tone remained conversational, but her eyes had gone sharp. "You assumed quantum fluctuations would destabilize at dimensional junction points. But you forgot to account for neural pathway interference. Living consciousness creates quantum shadows. When I corrected your math, the whole barrier problem disappeared." She gestured to the reality anchor. "That's how this works. It doesn't fight the universe's natural quantum state, it harmonizes with it. Like singing in tune instead of shouting over the music." Dr. Valera, a crystalline researcher whose work Maya had studied extensively, floated forward on her energy platform. Her crystalline body chimed softly as she moved, each note precisely calculated for emphasis. "Even accepting your claims about Dr. Xilex's work," she said, her translated voice carrying harmonics of skepticism, "the energy requirements for dimensional manipulation should be enormous. How are you powering such a device?" Maya grinned. This was the part she'd been looking forward to. "That's the beautiful thing about working with quantum consciousness instead of against it," she explained, activating a holographic display that made half the audience shield their eyes from its complexity. "Traditional dimensional manipulation tries to brute force reality. It's like trying to break down a door when you could just find the key." The hologram showed energy flows that twisted through dimensions most beings couldn't perceive. Maya's equations described pathways through spacetime that required minimal power because they followed natural quantum currents instead of fighting them. "The universe wants to be connected," Maya continued. "Every particle has quantum entangled partners scattered across the galaxy. I just figured out how to ask them to dance." The implications hit the assembled scientists like a physical blow. If Maya was right, if dimensional travel could be achieved with minimal energy input, then every assumption about galactic civilization needed to be reconsidered. Trade routes. Military strategy. The very concept of distance itself. Commander Thek of the Hegemony Security Forces stepped forward, his mechanical augmentations whirring with barely contained aggression. "Young human," he said, the translator's flat tone failing to mask his menace, "you claim to have developed technology with obvious military applications. Such developments require proper oversight and control." "By who?" Maya asked, genuinely curious. "You? The same people who told me I was too young to understand basic physics?" "By those with the wisdom to use such power responsibly." Maya's expression shifted. The playful child genius vanished, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. "Like you used wisdom when you blast the Tertian colonies?" she asked quietly. "Or when you imposed the technology restriction accords to keep lesser species from developing beyond your comfort level?" The auditorium fell into shocked silence. No one spoke to hegemony commanders that way. Especially not 13-year-old humans. Thek's augmented hand moved toward his weapon. I wouldn't, Maya said, her voice still conversational. My reality anchor isn't just for travel. It can manipulate any quantum system, including the quantum computers running your augmentations. To demonstrate, she made a subtle adjustment to her device. Thek's mechanical arm froze mid-motion, trapped in a localized quantum field that rendered its systems inert. See? Maya smiled brightly. Physics is fun. The demonstration sent ripples of alarm through the alien delegates. Here was a human child who could neutralize their most advanced military technology with casual ease. The balance of power they'd spent centuries maintaining had just been shattered by someone who probably still needed help reaching high shelves. Dr. Zane Okafor, Earth's official representative to the Galactic Science Council, rose from his seat. His face showed a mixture of pride and terror that Maya found oddly comforting. Maya, he said carefully, perhaps we should discuss the implications of your work in a more private setting? Why? Maya asked. So you can classify it? Lock it away? Pretend it doesn't exist? So we can ensure it's used responsibly. Maya's laugh echoed through the auditorium, bright and sharp as breaking glass. Dr. Okafor, humanity has been trying to get a seat at this table for 200 years. You've been told you're too violent, too unpredictable, too young as a species to be trusted with advanced technology. And, what did you do? You begged. You pleaded. You tried to prove you were worthy of their acceptance. She gestured to the assembled aliens, many of whom were frantically taking notes or speaking into communication devices. But, I didn't ask permission. I didn't wait for approval. I built what I needed and took what was mine. And now they're all terrified, because they've realized something important. Maya's voice carried across the auditorium with startling clarity. They were never the ones in control. They just convinced everyone else to believe it. The next few minutes blurred together in a cascade of demands, threats, and increasingly desperate attempts to assert authority over a situation that had already spiraled beyond control. Maya fielded questions with the patience of someone who'd expected exactly this reaction. When asked about her research methods, she explained how human neural patterns processed quantum data differently than other species. When pressed about her age, she pointed out that her results spoke for themselves. When Commander Thek demanded she surrender her technology for proper evaluation, she politely declined. But, I'll make you all a deal, she said, raising her voice above the growing chaos. Give me what I want, and I'll share what I know. The auditorium quieted again, though tension crackling in the air like static electricity. What do you want? Dr. Valera asked, her crystalline form resonating with harmonic uncertainty. Simple. Maya's smile was pure innocence wrapped around the core of adamantine determination. I want humanity to have a permanent seat on the Galactic Science Council. I want access to all restricted research databases. I want the technology restriction accords applied to humans officially repealed. And, I want formal apologies from every institution that rejected my applications because of my age. Preposterous, Dr. Xylex sputtered. You're asking us to restructure galactic policy based on the demands of a child. No, Maya corrected, I'm offering you a choice. Accept my terms, and I'll teach you everything. Refuse, and I'll teach humanity everything and let you figure out what to do when we're no longer asking for your permission. She activated her reality anchor again, preparing for departure. You have 72 hours to decide. After that, I start sharing my research with every human scientist in the galaxy. See how long your technological advantage lasts when my species stops playing by your rules. The column of shimmering light began to form around her. Oh, and, Dr. Xylex, she called out as dimensional energy swirled. You might want to check your math again. I sent the corrections to your personal database. No charge. Maya vanished, leaving behind only the fading scent of ozone and the sound of 3,000 brilliant minds trying to process what they just witnessed. In the silence that followed, Dr. Okafor slowly sat down and put his head in his hands. Around him, alien scientists began the frantic process of damage control, trying to understand how a 13-year-old human had just held the galaxy's power structure hostage with a device built from spare parts. But, in the depths of space, aboard a small transport vessel, Maya materialized in her makeshift laboratory and hugged her mother tight.
"How did it go?" Sarah asked, though Maya's grin already told her everything she needed to know.
"They're scared," Maya said simply.
"Good. Fear makes them think.
And thinking makes them realize they need us more than we need them." She moved to her workstation and activated communication arrays that shouldn't have existed on a civilian transport.
"Time for Phase 3, she announced, opening channels to human colonies across the galaxy.
Let's see what happens when they understand they're not negotiating with one little girl anymore.
They're negotiating with all of humanity." On screens across human space, Maya's image appeared.
Behind her, the reality anchor hummed with promise and threat in equal measure. "Hi everyone," she said to her species scattered among the stars.
"My name is Maya Chen.
I'm 13 years old.
And I have something to show you."
The response from humanity came faster than Maya had dared hope. Within 6 hours of her broadcast, every human colony, research station, and exploration vessel had acknowledged receipt of her transmission. Within 12 hours, the first prototypes were under construction.
Within 24 hours, the galaxy's power structure began to collapse. Maya sat in her laboratory, watching data streams flow across dozens of monitors. Each one showed another human settlement where brilliant minds were expanding on her work.
The neural pathway mappings she developed were being refined by xenobiologists on Kepler 442b. Her dimensional mathematics were being tested by physicist teams on Luna Base. Her quantum consciousness theories were being explored by philosophers and engineers working in perfect collaboration across the void. "Look at this," she called to her mother, highlighting a feed from New Geneva Colony.
"Dr. Peterson's team just cracked stable dimensional gateways. They're building a network that can connect every human world instantly."
Sarah peered over her daughter's shoulder at equations that made her neural implants ache.
"How many teams are working on this now?" 47 major research groups, plus hundreds of independent scientists."
Maya's fingers danced across holographic controls, coordinating research efforts with the casual efficiency of someone conducting an orchestra. The beautiful thing about human neural patterns is how well they sync with quantum consciousness fields. What took me months to develop alone, they're perfecting in days working together.
"And the aliens?" Maya's expression darkened slightly. "They're panicking." She pulled up intercepted communications from across the galaxy.
Encrypted channels buzzed with frantic conversations between alien governments, military commands, and scientific institutions. The universal theme was the same: humanity had to be stopped before they fundamentally altered the balance of galactic civilization. "The hegemony is mobilizing fleet assets," Maya reported, scanning through military dispatches. "The Crystalline Confederacy is debating an immediate technological embargo on all human worlds.
The Zephyrian Science Ministry wants to classify my research as a galactic security threat." "Can they do that?" "They can try." Maya's smile carried an edge that would have terrified beings with better survival instincts. "But they're making the same mistake they always make. They're assuming we'll ask permission."
A priority transmission chimed through the ship's communication array. The source identifier made Maya's eyebrows raise: Galactic Science Council, emergency session, maximum priority. She accepted the transmission. Dr. Okafor's face appeared on screen, looking like he'd aged a decade in the past day.
"Maya," he said without preamble, "we need to talk."
"We are talking," she replied cheerfully.
"In person."
"The council has called an emergency session to address your ultimatum."
"They want you present." "Of course they do."
"Are they prepared to meet my terms?" Dr. Okafor's expression suggested they were prepared to do something considerably less diplomatic.
"Maya, there are forces at work here bigger than you understand. The Hegemony Security Council has classified your technology as an existential threat. They're discussing options that could endanger every human in the galaxy. Maya's casual demeanor evaporated instantly. Explain. Forced technological regression. Quarantine protocols for human space. In extreme scenarios. He paused, clearly struggling with the words. Preventive military action against human colonies. The temperature in Maya's laboratory seemed to drop several degrees. Behind her, the reality anchor's humming shifted to a lower, more ominous frequency. Let me make sure I understand, Maya said, her voice carrying the kind of calm that preceded hurricanes. They're threatening genocide because a 13-year-old human girl solved problems they couldn't? They're scared, Maya. Your technology doesn't just threaten their military superiority, it threatens the fundamental assumptions their civilizations are built on. Social hierarchies, economic systems, the entire concept of technological advancement as a gradual process controlled by established authorities. Good, Maya replied with breathtaking simplicity. Maybe it's time their assumptions were threatened. She stood up, moving to the reality anchor's control interface. Tell the council I'll attend their emergency session. But, I'm bringing friends. Maya, don't do anything rash. She cut the transmission and immediately opened channels to every human research team in the galaxy. This is Maya Chen, she broadcast, her image appearing on screens from Earth to the farthest human outpost. The aliens are scared. Scared enough to consider violence against our people because we refuse to stay in the box they built for us. Across human space, conversations stopped. Families gathered around communication displays. Engineers paused in their work to listen. They think fear will make us compliant. They think threats will make us retreat. They think we'll go back to begging for scraps from their table. Maya's voice carried the kind of conviction that started revolutions. They're wrong. She gestured to the equipment filling her laboratory. Every human scientist, every engineer, every dreamer who ever looked at the stars and wondered what if this is our moment. Not to prove we're worthy of their approval, but to prove we never needed it in the first place. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Research teams across the galaxy began implementing the protocols Maya had developed. Not just the dimensional gateway technology, but the weapons applications. The defensive systems. The reality-altering capabilities that could rewrite the laws of physics on command. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time. 2 days later, Maya materialized in the Galactic Council chambers not alone, but accompanied by holograms of every major human scientist in the galaxy. The chamber, designed to accommodate dozens of alien species, suddenly felt crowded with human presence. The assembled delegates stared in shock. They'd expected a frightened child, hopefully accompanied by diplomatic adults who could be reasoned with. Instead, they faced a coordinated display of technological superiority that made their own achievements look primitive. Chancellor Vex of the Galactic Council, his ancient reptilian features showing strain that spoke to sleepless days of crisis management, opened the session with words that carried the weight of desperation. Representative Chen, he said, his translator struggling with the unusual title, this council has convened to address the destabilizing effects of your recent technological demonstrations. Hello, Chancellor Vex, Maya replied politely. I prefer Dr. Chen, actually. I know the degree is honorary, but Earth's top universities seem to think my work merited recognition. She gestured to her holographic companions. I've brought some friends to help explain why your concerns are misguided. Dr. Sarah Martinez, xenobiology specialist from Alpha Centauri, stepped forward. Council members, my research indicates that the quantum consciousness integration Dr. Chen has developed isn't just compatible with human neural patterns, it's optimized for them. We're not stealing your technology. We're using capabilities you don't possess. Professor Kim Lee, temporal mechanics expert from the Tau Ceti colony, added, furthermore, our analysis suggests that dimensional manipulation technology has been deliberately suppressed by current galactic authorities to maintain technological dependence among client species. That's quite an accusation, Chancellor Vex replied carefully. Maya smiled. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. She activated a holographic display that made the alien delegates recoil in recognition. Internal communications from their own governments, scientific reports they'd classified, and strategic assessments they'd never intended human eyes to see.
Turns out quantum consciousness manipulation works really well for accessing protected information networks, Maya explained conversationally.
Your computer systems were designed to keep out conventional hackers.
They weren't designed to defend against someone who can convince quantum particles to behave differently. The chamber erupted in outraged voices speaking dozens of languages.
Maya waited patiently for the noise to die down. The point is, she continued once relative quiet returned, humanity isn't asking to join your system anymore. We're informing you that we're changing it.
Commander Thek, his military bearing somewhat diminished by the memory of his disabled augmentations, stood to address the assembly.
The security implications of unrestricted human technological development are unacceptable.
The hegemony demands immediate cessation of all research activities and surrender of existing technology for proper evaluation. Maya's holographic companions exchanged glances that would have been comical if the situation weren't so serious.
Commander Thek, Maya replied, I'm going to explain this once, using small words so everyone can understand. Humanity is done taking orders from people who think we're too young, too violent, too unpredictable to be trusted with our own capabilities. She gestured, and new holographic displays appeared around the chamber.
Real-time images from human colonies across the galaxy, each showing impossible technological achievements that had been implemented in the past 48 hours.
Dimensional gateways connecting previously isolated worlds.
Energy systems that drew power directly from quantum fluctuations.
Defensive networks that could manipulate local spacetime to render entire planets unreachable. We're not surrendering anything, Maya continued. We're sharing it.
Every human world now has access to technology that makes your most advanced systems look like stone tools.
Your military advantage? Gone. Your technological monopoly? Ended. Your ability to dictate terms to species you consider inferior? Finished. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Chancellor Vex cleared his throat, the sound echoing strangely in the vast space.
Dr. Chen, surely you understand that such rapid technological advancement requires oversight, coordination, gradual implementation to avoid societal disruption.
Why? Maya asked simply.
Because that's how civilization advances. Through careful, considered progress overseen by established authorities. Maya's laugh was bright and sharp as crystal breaking.
Chancellor, that's how your civilization advances. Humanity does things differently.
She gestured to her assembled colleagues.
We share freely. We build on each other's work. We solve problems because they need solving, not because some committee approved the research proposal.
Dr. Elena Vasquez, engineer from the Jupiter mining platforms, stepped forward. With respect, Chancellor, your gradual implementation has kept most galactic species at subsistence technology levels for millennia.
We've seen your restricted research databases.
You've had solutions to energy scarcity, resource depletion, and dimensional travel for centuries.
You just chose not to share them.
Because uncontrolled technological development leads to chaos, to war, to civilizational collapse, protested Dr. Xilex, his earlier humiliation apparently forgotten in the face of larger concerns.
Does it? Maya asked. Or does it lead to freedom?
She activated one final display, showing comparative technological advancement across galactic history. The data told a story of deliberate suppression, controlled scarcity, and technological dependence designed to maintain existing power structures.
Your system doesn't prevent war, Dr. Xilex.
It just ensures that only you get to choose who fights it. The assembled delegates stared at evidence of their own systematic oppression of client species.
Some showed shame. Others showed fear.
A few showed anger at having their methods exposed so completely. Maya watched their reactions with the analytical interest of a scientist observing an experiment.
Here's what happens next, she announced, her young voice carrying absolute authority. Humanity withdraws from all existing galactic treaty obligations.
We'll maintain diplomatic relations with any species that treats us as equals, and we'll defend ourselves against any species that doesn't.
And, our technology, she continued. We're making it freely available to any species that wants it. No restrictions. No oversight. No control. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humanity's advances were shared freely, every oppressed species in the galaxy would have access to technology that could challenge their oppressors. The entire galactic order would collapse within years. You would destroy everything we've built? Chancellor Vex asked, his voice hollow with disbelief. We would set everyone free, Maya corrected. There's a difference. She prepared to activate her reality anchor for departure, then paused for one final statement. You called me too young to understand the complexities of galactic civilization. But, I understand them perfectly. I just reject them. The column of dimensional light began to form around Maya and her holographic companions. Humanity is done asking permission to exist on our own terms. We're done accepting limitations imposed by beings who fear what we might accomplish. And, we're done pretending that your approval matters to us. As the light intensified, her final words echoed through the chamber. The galaxy is about to become a very different place. Try to keep up. Maya vanished, leaving behind only the fading resonance of quantum energies and the sound of a power structure that had ruled for millennia beginning to crumble. In the days that followed, the transformation was swift and irreversible. Human technology flowed freely to any species willing to accept it. Oppressed worlds suddenly found themselves with the means to achieve independence. Trade routes that had taken months to navigate were reduced to minutes through dimensional gateways. And, at the center of it all, Maya Chen continued her work. Not as a child begging for recognition, but as the architect of humanity's ascension to their rightful place among the stars. The galaxy had learned to fear not humanity's violence or their ambition, but their refusal to accept the word impossible from anyone who underestimated them. Especially when that anyone had made the fatal mistake of telling a 13-year-old genius that she was too young to change the universe. As it turned out, she was just young enough to do exactly that.